Thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming any life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first objective is we want you to know that whatever you're experiencing in life, whatever you're encountering, you're not alone. We want to join you to let you know that we together can help you through whatever challenge you may have that at the time may seem too difficult to be able to overcome. Our second objective is to help you determine with a very confident resolve there are multiple solutions, multiple factors involved in any life encounter. It's a matter of thinking into and thinking through the life situation you are encountering to determine the various options, the various solutions that are available to you. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If whatever you're experiencing is a result of a decision you made sometime in the past, such that if you had a life redo, you would make a different decision, we want to help you determine the objective facts and factors to evaluate to help you reach a more informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture, and the Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we feature Maureen Ross Gemme for our second episode, where she comes back to us to talk about rescuing without enabling. The topic is one where it applies to leaders in organizations, it applies to moms, dads, it applies to anyone who may be mentoring or have influence over anyone, and it has to do with confronting people, Marty, which to some is just a daunting task, just the term confront, that it makes people nervous, some people nervous, because they think it could lead to an argument or otherwise separation from people. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from this?
Ron, Maureen was really good today. I enjoyed her podcast. The one funny thing was when she first started talking about personalities, and there are some personalities that you can't tolerate. They're just impossible to deal with.
Are you talking about one right now?
No, I'm not. But she says, work on yourself. If you want to be a role model, work on yourself. Work on improving yourself. Learn how to do that and learn how to get along with people and speak to people. And she also said, communicate without judgment. And I think we do that a lot. We judge and we come across as you should be doing this and this is the way you should do it. And that's not how Maureen says you should talk to people, your children, or ones that you want to build a relationship with.
Let's listen together. A lot of very insightful, useful information. Hi, Maureen. It is great to have you back with us for a second episode, and our listeners are going to be very interested in your perspective of life. For those listeners who are joining us for the first time, I want to encourage you to go back to Maureen's opening podcast, where she chronicled some aspects of life and how you have overcome, Maureen. But thank you for being willing to share your wisdom with us. And today, let's talk about how we can encourage people to up-level their standards without enabling poorer or lower standards. And what I'm addressing, Maureen, is those who are not maybe meeting the standards we'd like to have. And this topic applies to parents, organizational leaders, many aspects, but it's a matter from my perspective of inspiring people to reach a higher level of performance. But how do we do that? Some of us are concerned about confronting people that they may not understand us, we may be misunderstood, those kinds of things. But Maureen, welcome. It's going to be real good to learn of your expertise and wisdom.
Thank you very much. I mean, we all have our own, experiences and wisdom, but I think this is a really great topic for everybody to understand a little bit better, because the first and foremost thing I would say about this topic is we have to be role models. The only way to really show people how to expand and how to improve upon their behaviors and their mindsets and their self is to work on yourself. So I'll say that that's the number one thing, right? We got to work on ourselves, which is being the role model for other people to work on themselves. So you can only be a role model so far, though, because somebody's not following you. If somebody doesn't recognize that they should be doing these kinds of behaviors, then you do have to turn around and talk to them and actually face the fact that there's some sort of behavior that may not be living up to your standards. And if you're the leader, maybe it's in an organization, maybe it's in your family, maybe it's in your friend group, or right, where it's something that's really bothering you, then it's really important to confront that behavior. And there's certain things that we really can't do anything about, but if you don't say anything, you could be enabling that behavior. So what are some of the behaviors, Ron, that you're thinking of that you like? For example, can you give me how you would want to change or help somebody to change that behavior?
Certainly. Thank you, Maureen. And I think it's very important for us just to reiterate what you said, that if we represent a standard or we verbalize a standard, our actions need to show that. And so I have learned it is a turnoff to hear somebody say that this is what the expectation, but they're not doing it. But some of the things I'm referring to, Maureen, might be I am perpetually late for meetings. I am 10, 15 minutes, always late for a meeting. It might be that my performance, or let's say my writing standard, or let's say I always miss assignment dates, or let's say suspense dates. I'm always late. Those are just some of the things, Maureen, from a parent's perspective. Our children might speak disrespectfully to someone, and we say we cannot have that in our family. And so it's a matter of confronting those people. I think, Maureen, it's a way to do it tastefully and hopefully win their approval without compromising our standards in the context of being parents and a supervisor. Yes, I think to a degree, I want to remain your friend, but I'll never cease being a parent. I'll never cease being your supervisor. So I think we can perhaps have a divider line or a line in the sand, whatever you may call it, that friendship versus my role in as a parent, supervisor, or whatever it may be. But those are just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, that's a lot right there to unpack, right? Because we really, in the end, we cannot change anybody else's behavior. We really can't change other people, but we can inspire them, we can motivate them, and we can build a level of trust that they want to do better for us. Okay. So for example, I do believe that personality has a lot to do with it. And when I say that, because I teach this aspect, there are some people who just can't tolerate other people's behavior. They just can't stand that they can't control them. And so they yell at them, or they keep saying, you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this, or how come you're always late? And they shame that person for their behavior. But another personality type might say, and I think this is a lot more effective, and it depends the type of personality that you're talking to as well. But just we'll keep going with this scenario that the personality type that is the leader, say me, for example, what I would do is sit the person down first. There's got to always be a baseline, right? Whether you're a supervisor or a parent, there's a baseline. And that baseline changes over time because people grow and mature. Let's stick with the parent role right now. The baseline is you know what? I've noticed that you have been talking to me with this voice, this tone in your voice. Do you hear that tone? Do you hear how you're talking to me? It's disrespectful. I feel it's disrespectful. And so if the person's not even aware of it, like for example, when I was an addict, I was a teenager, I was told multiple times, you have a bad attitude. I didn't even know what an attitude was, Ron. I do not, I would say, I don't have a bad attitude. What are you talking about? I didn't get it. So if we could describe instead, that's really more of a label or a judgment, actually. If we could say instead, what is the behavior I want you to change? I hear a tone of voice and it sounds disrespectful. Your voice is like this. And then when you talk to me, it goes up like this and it sounds like this, so that they can hear this and or see the behavior. Or every time you come into a meeting, Ron, I see that you are 5 minutes late or 15 minutes late. This behavior is unacceptable. And here's why. Here's the impact. It's an impact to me. There's an impact to the team. And there's also going to be an impact to you, Ron, because if you continue, I'm using you as an example, but if you continue to show up this kind of late, and it's unacceptable, you're undermining, this and this and this. And this is how it's going to impact you. You're going to get written up. I'm going to have to put it in your file. Now, I do believe that you have the capacity to get here on time. And what are we going to do? What are you going to do to change this behavior? Okay. And that way, and that's the same thing with the child, with the teenager or whatnot, is let's hear what solutions you have to change this behavior. And then they might say, well, I just can't get up on time. I've always set my alarms, but they might ask me for help. Can you call me and make sure that I'm out of bed? No, you have to solve this on your own. Well, if there's an impact to you that you find unacceptable, then you are going to make the changes in your behavior because you don't want to have to deal with the consequences. But the truth is, the consequences are going to be made by you. So for example, with the child, I might say, if this happens again, there's going to be a timeout or there's going to be some sort of a consequence. You're not going to, I won't be talking to you. You're going to need to go to your room. This is the kind of thing you decide with the person that you're dealing with. And once that consequence is decided upon and or solution, right, that they're going to do, then you can help support them, you can coach them, and you can reinforce every time that they do it well or do it right, that, yeah, that's awesome. You give them a pat on the back. I'm not saying rewards like monetary rewards or anything like that, because this is just getting them up to the standard, to the baseline of what's expected of them. Does that make sense?
It does. Several things come to mind, Maureen. I want to ask you, if we do not address substandard performance, does that ostensibly become the new lower standards that others can see?
Yeah, it happens all the time, right? Especially at work. When we say, well, they used to come in all the time and everything's fine. And now they've just been late a couple of times. And I'm not going to say anything because maybe it's, but then they do it again and again. And now you feel like, well, I didn't say anything the first 4 or 5 times. It's just a pattern now, becomes a pattern. I've already taught that person that that's acceptable behavior by not confronting it, right? And then you start having other problems because other people will say, how come they get to come in late all the time? And then till finally it blows up or you blow up, right? You don't say anything, you don't say anything, you don't say anything. And then suddenly you're having this big conversation about why you're always late. And you use this language and it's, and again, it's disrespectful and it may not have been always. And you find, it ends up being a conflict now because you've ignored it for so long. But if you address it as soon as it happens, oh, I've noticed that you've been late twice. I let it go yesterday, but today it's happened again. What's going on with you? Simply asking. I've noticed this behavior. This is the impact and then stop talking. Don't start saying, here's what the consequences are going to be, or here's what you have to do, or here's what's unacceptable. Just listen, because this listening thing doesn't happen enough. This conversation needs to happen so we can hear what's going on. Then they can say, oh, you know what? I've just been tired. I have jet lag. I don't know. I came in over the weekend. I haven't been able to get my body back to regulated. It's not going to happen again. I'll be here. Or, I have a new baby in the house and they're sick and they're waking up, or the dog has been, you're going to hear the excuses, right? You're going to hear those, but at least now and as a leader, you can say, okay, I get that. All right, I understand you're going through a little bit of a tough time. I'll cut you some slack this week or whatever, but this is, it's not going to continue, or what are you doing to handle it? You can decide then if you need to step in and help them with solutions, or you don't have to fix anybody, but then at least that they're aware. And this is the same like with addict behavior. So, for example, if somebody has said that they quit drinking or quit smoking, and then the next time I smell cigarettes on their breath, or I smell it, because that's what happens, right? And if we just say, well, I'm just not going to say anything because this is a difficult conversation to have, to confront somebody on their behavior. Well, I see that they're slipping. I noticed, I found some empty bottles in the garbage or whatnot. And if you don't say anything, they think they're getting away with it, and they'll continue to do it. And then it becomes, or at the first time you say, I noticed something, is this happening? And they deny it, then you could get into, a push-pull kind of a fight, and it becomes a conflict. But those are the things. If you keep denying it, or you keep letting them get away with it without confronting them, then you have a problem on your hands.
No, that's very well said, Maureen. Several things come to mind, and I want to ask you this in the form of a question. For me, confronting and being confrontational are very different. Confronting just means I want to address something with you. Confrontational means I could connote I'm being argumentative. I'm going to maybe be condescending. I'm going to tell you that, hey, what you're doing is wrong, you're bad, and so forth. Nothing for our listeners in this is meant to be confrontational, argumentative, and so forth. But I think what I'm hearing you say, Maureen, is be willing to adapt your personality to the person with whom you're confronting. And in that context, be willing to listen to them. And they may have some sort of valid reason, or there could have been something could have happened traumatic in their life that led to the behavior. But if we demonstrate we're not even willing to listen to that, that can be a turnoff to the person, albeit we do have a standard, but I do want to understand what may be going on in your life. Am I processing what you're saying correctly in a way to inspire people to a better performance?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Whenever we're talking with anyone, whether it's your love relationship, whether it's your boss or somebody that works for you, or a colleague or your child, right? It doesn't really matter. But regarding the relationship, that's not the differences. The real behavior change is how you communicate without judgment. If you can stop using the judgmental words, but you still have to own like how it's impacting you, but you can own that instead of, what I'm trying to say here is, stop using those squishy words like, I don't like your attitude, or you're irresponsible, or, you're lazy. Those are judgmental words. Instead, say, we talked about keeping your room clean all the time, and I'm noticing this behavior. I'm noticing you're sleeping until such and such a time, and then you're just leaving your clothes everywhere. You're trying to get ready, whatever. Talk about the behavior that you notice and how it impacts you. So regardless of the relationship, if you stop using those judgmental words, then people will say, oh, they just care about me, or or this impact, and I see what I'm doing. It's much easier to take responsibility for your own behavior and to try to change that behavior. Now, if the behavior doesn't change, you have to make some decisions. Do you want this person on your team? Are you going to provide some consequences for that child? Are you going to get out of that relationship? You have choices, or maybe you even decide to leave your job because your boss continues to treat you disrespectfully in meetings and so on. You can manage up too, right? You have to be able to talk about what you're feeling and how their behavior is impacting you without saying, you make me feel this way. Like you have to say, I feel this way when you do that. So it really does make a difference, because then it opens up the conversation and it allows, do you see it that way? Or can we work on this problem together? Because I really care about you. I love you, or I care about this relationship, or I want to see you succeed. And unfortunately, you're sabotaging yourself, and that's probably not going to happen. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And Maureen, I think you said something really, really important. Stop telling me using judgmental terms and attitudes. There are some personalities who might say to that, well, gosh, I'm not being judgmental. But another person can say from their perspective, well, this is what you said, this is how you came across, and you can make me aware that my personality, my style is, or at least could be, perceived as being judgmental. I think that is very important. And I'm going to believe that some people can become very argumentative if your tone of voice leads me to think you are judging me, when in fact our purpose, I think, is to just correct your behavior. What are your thoughts about judgmental statements? Are you aware that judgmental statements can cause dissension between people? Are you aware of those things that could be construed as judgmental statements? I want to encourage you to just take a moment to think about conversations you have had. Have they been possibly reactive to statements made, and judgmental statements were not consciously thought of, but they just came out? Some people are very defensive about those type judgmental statements. Some people can be very hurt by those statements. It is a matter of personality. Let me encourage you to take the opportunity to review your mindset about judgmental statements and how you approach people in confronting them in the context of wanting to up-level their behavior and performance.
Yes, that's very, very true. And so you do want to be more composed, certainly at work. But there are sometimes, Ron, in your personality type, like, for example, are you familiar with the everything DISC model?
I am. Marty and I are DISC certified. Just for your reference, you may discern pretty quickly I'm a DI personality.
Okay. So yes, I knew that about you. That's one of the reasons why I reached out and wanted to be on your podcast. So really quick for the listeners, the D is for it's the dominant type. It's like this really go-getter. I want to make results or get results. And sometimes they're more task focused than people focused. The I stands for influencer, whereas this person's more enthusiastic. They're people persons. They're also fast action takers, but they like people more. They want to collaborate. And then the S stands for steadiness. And those folks are much more supportive and encouraging, warm and friendly. They have a hard time saying no or standing up for themselves sometimes. And then the C's are much more composed and non-emotional. They are systems and processy type people. So having just said that quick model, when you have somebody at work who is a C, conscientious style, they can't stand any kind of emotional outbursts or conflict. They really want things to just be objective and rational all the time. But that's not really the way life is it? Sometimes people are really emotionally involved in these projects and in these solutions that we provide for our customers and how things are going. And those conversations can feel like a personality conflict sometimes, because then if you're too emotional, you need to tone it down when you're working with the C's. And the C's, if they're too unemotional, they need to rise up a little bit more and come out of their shell and talk about how they really feel about things. So sometimes these discussions can really get you out of your comfort zone, but it's just so important to be able to have that conflict, because then it becomes productive, because then you can make the better project, or product, or you can solve the bigger problems. When you ignore those things and those behaviors and you never talk about them, then you have underlying, you're walking on eggshells, right? You're ignoring, you're avoiding people, and then there's a win-lose situation or a lose-lose situation. So we really do need to collaborate more. Do you agree?
I totally agree. I will tell you that I have no intention of speaking for Marty. Her personality style is SCI. And so Marty and I are very opposite, yet in complementary ways. And so, Maureen, Marty and I both really like what you said, that yes, I'm going to use a term, we're wired a certain way. That is let's just say our day-to-day personality. We need to be an effective leader and to inspire others. I think what you're saying is we need to adapt us to them. We need to be willing to listen to them, albeit by listening to them and adapting to them doesn't mean we're lowering the standard. It just means we're, if I can use the term, being appropriately compassionate and empathetic to understand them, with the hope that we will inspire them to achieve the standard that we are ascribing to. And yes, there's some who will refuse to come up to the standard, and we'll have to make a choice that if maybe you're just not the right person in this organization. So if I said anything that mischaracterizes what you said, please correct me.
No, we're totally on the same page here. I think it's interesting, like I am strong I on the very outside of the thing there. And I've actually tried to take the assessment to make myself more D. I can't do it. I cannot answer those questions the way I know that the D is. But yet we are all styles. We can expand into all those other spaces. And Marty, my husband is an SC. And I find it really, really interesting that probably 80% of the people in my life are SCs or CSs. I have so many, like the clients that are attracted to me are all CSs or SCs. And my friends out of my friendship group, a lot of them are S's and C's. And it's really very interesting to me. But I think that's because we complement each other, right? Sometimes I would play the role at work for the C's and the S's who were more introverted. They would come to me after the meeting because I'm open and friendly, and they would say, oh, I just can't stand this direction we're taking and blah, blah, blah. And I would say, well, speak up in the meeting. And they're not comfortable with that. So I would speak up for them. I would say, we call this speak for wolf, right? In the old Indian tribe storytelling, you have to have somebody speaking for wolf. Well, anyways, the other perspective. And so I tell my clients and I tell the people I speak to all the time that the best way to do that is, if you are extroverted, if you're always fast-paced and outgoing, you need to zip it and start listening more as a general, tip. And then those of you that are always have it zipped, you need to unzip it, open your mouth, speak up more, because you have really important things to say. And if you always let those D's and I's overrun you all the time, you're never going to get your great ideas out on the table. So that's what I say there. It's a little bit different when we're talking about families.
Wow, sounds like an echo at home here, Maureen. Hey, you, zip it. Hey, you, throttle back. Hey, you, don't try to fix me. Hey, you, hey, you.
I get stop interrupting me all the time, right?
This is very, very valuable. This is all about connecting with and being effectively interacting with people. For the listener who's saying, I like what you're saying, I just don't feel comfortable doing what you're saying. Confronting people is just, I just hate it. I don't know how to do it effectively. I have people in my organization. I have children, perhaps, or I have friends within my circle of influence who are not meeting what I think are socially acceptable standards. But I am I'm shaken to the bone of confronting them. Can you help us with a call to action, Maureen? How do we overcome whatever fears we may have? Because everything you're saying seems very, yes, doable in very, let's say it's the right thing. I just don't feel comfortable doing it. Can you help me?
Yeah, this is a really hard one, right, Ron? This is why life is painful sometimes, because we hold in our stuff. We stuff down these feelings that we have, or emotions, or the things that really irk us. And you know what happens when we do that? We create disease in our bodies. We create rifts in our relationships. And you're not doing yourself any service, you're doing yourself a disservice by not speaking your truth. So I want to encourage, inspire, I don't know really how else to say it, that it's important that you speak up. Early on in my relationship, I've been married now for 33 years. How long have you guys been married?
September 7th, 2021 was effective 53 years, and we're loving life.
Oh my goodness. Awesome. That's fantastic. You're amazing. All right. So in the very beginning of my relationship, I remember, because I always wanted to please people. I want people to like me. I want your love and attention and affection. And so I would do people pleasing kinds of things. And then once I realized that I was doing that, I had to start to speak up. In the beginning of speaking up, it was hard because you can't always find the words. But what I did do was I found a confidant. And this is the big tip I want to give to anybody who's having a hard time with this. I found a confidant or a therapist or a counselor, whoever it is that you can speak to, that you know is going to hold you your trust and not say anything. You talk to somebody about this issue, see if you can see it from a different perspective, and practice having the conversation. What will you say to your loved one? Do you think this conversation will go? Anyways, you practice and then you actually do it. It's hard because I would say, well, I don't want to bring it up right now because he's in a really good mood and I don't want to wreck that. Or I don't want to bring it up right now because he's not in a really good mood. And this could turn into a big fight. So we have these things that we say in our heads. We can't continue to let your fears stop you. You have to just say, honey, we got to have a talk. It's either right now or it's after dinner tonight or it's tomorrow morning when we're walking, whatever. Make an appointment or do it, but you got to do it. And every time I thought, because I was worried about abandonment. I was worried this would blow up and it wouldn't be a good outcome. But always, every time we worked through one of these, quote, fights, we got closer. We got closer and closer, and we just had more and more intimacy. And so the level of discomfort that you allow yourself to feel to the opposite extreme, you will have the peaks of love and joy and just incredible summits of life. And instead, if you allow yourself to go through those tough times, all right? So that's the thing. And if you can't do that, then you have to decide, is this going to work for you? Can you live with this kind of pain in your body? And if you can't, then get out. But sometimes we put up with long-term discomfort instead of short-term pain. So face that little bit of pain, and I'll tell you, the rewards will be huge.
Wow, that is good. I think one of your primary messages, Maureen, is don't go it alone. That's one of the objectives of this podcast. We're in it together. Some of us have been through stuff, and all of us are willing to help, reach out, find someone that you can trust and be accountable to. We're in it together. We're in it together. Together, we will overcome. Maureen, that's great wisdom. Thank you for everything your life has been through. Thank you for being willing to pass forward your life experiences you've learned, and we're all gaining from this. So on behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you for your wisdom and thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
How comfortable are you working with a person who needs to uplevel their behavior because their standards are not what you would hope those standards to be, their performance or their behavior to be? I'm talking about those who, small examples so to speak, but yet are indicative of behavior, always being late to a meeting. A person is not dressed well. They have a sloven appearance by your standards. A person who needs to speak better. Any of these kinds of things. How comfortable are you addressing the person to help uplevel them? I think in some cases it's a matter of having that person feel safe with you. It's a matter of having a connected relationship and asking for, or you're showing respect to them, and in turn they're showing respect for you. When that mutual respect exists, I think the possibility of working with a person, and I believe it's a matter of working alongside them, and I don't think it's a matter of being condescending or you must stop and so forth. But if we take the time to understand people, there could be legitimate reasons why they are doing what they're doing, late for meetings, not dressing appropriately, and so forth, because of something that has happened. It's a legitimate reason, but I think it's a matter of showing compassion for the person. I'm going to say it's appropriate compassion. We can go overboard by enabling that kind of behavior, but when we are genuine from the heart, that we want to show the compassion, that we understand and we want to work with that person. I think, as Maureen explains, that as we ask them a question, what can you do to change your behavior, to be on time, to dress better, speak better? And we're not talking condescendingly, but rather we're working with them. And the question is, I want for you to devise a solution, and I want to hold you accountable for that solution, and together we can work toward upleveling your behavior to meet the standards that we want. I think it's a matter of relating well to people and being able to and showing the desire of our heart to work with them, to be appropriately compassionate and empathetic to any challenges they may be going through without lowering the standards. As Maureen very aptly said, whatever we accept in the workplace, in our family, in the neighborhood, our circle of friends, becomes the new lower standard that others can look to say, well, why are they allowed to do that and I am not? So we need to make certain that we are living the standard we're speaking of. We need to determine a why. Why are we having that standard? And it's an uncompromising position. We do need to uphold the standard, we need to know exactly why. We need to be able to articulate why we have that standard. We hope we can work with you in helping people to up-level their behavior. It can be challenging, difficult, but we want to work with you. Let's work together, and I hope you'll want to share this podcast with others. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with you. We hope you will want to subscribe to this podcast series, and we hope you'll share this podcast with others within your circle of influence to help them up-level their behavior without in any form or fashion denigrating. Marty and I are certified life coaches with the John Maxwell Enterprise, and we want to help anyone to overcome any challenges they may have in life that are keeping them from performing at their God-designed level of behavior and standards. We hope that we can work together. Share with us the experiences you have. Send us an email to ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. Let's share it with each other. Let's comment in the comment section. Let's engage and share experiences so that we can learn from each other, so that we can help advance each other. We look forward to working with you and share our respective experiences.